Happy Tuesday, everyone, and here is our lesson on trapezoids. So, the trapezoid, if y'all remember from last week, is a four-sided quadrilateral with one pair of parallel sides. So let's go ahead and draw us a trapezoid. Now, if you notice in this trapezoid, we have exactly one pair of parallel sides. Now, what makes the trapezoid a little tricky with some students is that the trapezoid might be drawn like this, and some students get a little confused because it's drawn a different way. Or, of course, it could be like this, it could be like this, a lot of different other ways. But here's the other problem with trapezoids. Now listen to the definition again. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with one pair of parallel sides. So yes, class, this shape I'm about to draw is also a trapezoid. Okay, so we have two right angles here, but look what we have. Parallel sides. So therefore, this is a trapezoid. It's not your traditional one, but it is one. Now here's the one that really confuses students. We draw in this line, connect, connect. Now, usually on a trapezoid, you have two lines that are kind of like pointing in together, and it's like they would eventually meet, like it would make a triangle. But look at this one. You see how this is slanted in the same direction as this part on the bottom. Even though it's slanted in the same direction, this line right here is slightly shorter than this line, but notice how these two segments are parallel. So yes, class, this is also a trapezoid. And a lot of students will confuse this as, just some regular quadrilateral or even maybe a parallelogram. So if this was just slightly off, I could actually make it almost exactly, but if I'm off just a tad, it's still a trapezoid because of one set of parallel lines. These lines, of course, would eventually meet, even though they are slanted the same way. Now, here are the things you need to know about a trapezoid. All right, first, on a trapezoid, the two angles that connect the parallel lines are going to make 180. So if I took a protractor, measured this, and got 50, then over here would have to be 130. Now, opposite angles are not congruent on a trapezoid. These two angles will not be congruent if it's a non-traditional or non-isosceles trapezoid. So I could actually have another number here. We'll call that 60. So therefore, this would be 120 because it makes 180. You just got to be careful because it could be drawn like this. So wherever you see the two parallel lines, the two angles that connect the parallel lines will be 180, but these will not be 180 here and here. Now, I just got through mentioning the isosceles trapezoid. Well, that's the one or the shape that you were first introduced to when you ever first saw a trapezoid. And an isosceles trapezoid means that the two sides here, and I meant to tell you earlier, the non-parallel sides, so here's parallel, parallel, the two non-parallel sides are actually called legs. So that's a leg and that's a leg, and these, or every angle that you see, is called a base angle. All right, so this would be a base, and this is a base. So a trapezoid actually has two bases to it. Okay, now let's talk about the isosceles trapezoid. The two legs will be congruent. If you have an isosceles trapezoid with two legs congruent, then that means the base angles that join the legs will be congruent. So, like if this is 120, that would be 120. And these two would be congruent. So 60 and 60. And it makes sense. If this is 60, that's 120, which is 180. 60, 120, 180. But let's go back here. 60, 60 is 120. That does not equal 180. So that's why the two angles that are with the base is not ever going to be equal. So those parallel line angles are not going to be equal. Or make 180. Sorry, I meant to say 180. All right, so let's look at a couple examples with this, and then I'll show you the next part of the trapezoid. All right, no tick marks. So if this is 110, what is that? 180 minus 110, 70 degrees. If this is 100 degrees, what is this? 100, 180, so this is 80. Okay, if you have an isosceles trapezoid, if this is 110, of course that would be 70, but this would also be 70 and this 110. But this only occurs if it's isosceles. And usually they'll identify it by either with the little congruent marks like I did here, or with the tick marks with the legs, so you'll know. All right, now here's the other thing you need to know about isosceles trapezoids. If you put in two diagonals, now this only works on the isosceles, the diagonals will be congruent. So this whole segment is the same as this. If this is 20, that's 20. Also, this segment is congruent to that one, and this segment is congruent to this one. So if this is 8, that's 8. If that's 2, that's 2. And then, of course, you can see how these angles are congruent, these are congruent, and so on. And that's basically it for the isosceles trapezoid. Now, there's another thing that we need to talk about. So, everybody draw a trapezoid. And this time, I want you to put in a mid-segment. So this is trapezoid with mid-segment. This is going to be very, very similar to the triangle mid-segment theorem that we learned earlier in the year. So everybody write in the number 6 here and the number 14 here. And I want to find the length of the mid-segment. So first of all, if you have a mid-segment, these two are going to be congruent, and these two are going to be congruent. And look what we have, parallel lines. Now, if these are parallel, you have parallel lines cut by transversal, so that angle is the same as that one. This one's the same as this one. So you got a lot of the same things going on previous lessons that we had. So always recognize parallel, when you have a mid-segment, you're going to have, by corresponding angles, congruent angles. Then also, if you look, we have a trapezoid on the bottom and one on the top. And then you apply all the same rules that I showed you up here. Okay, but here's the main question. What is the length of the mid-segment? So there is kind of a formula that you can follow. If you take base plus base divided by 2, it will equal to the mid-segment. So actually we'll call this base 1, base 2. Base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2. So 14 plus 6 is 20, divided by 2 is 10. So the length of the mid-segment is 10. There is another type of problem that you could see with this. Instead of giving you the two bases, they could give you a base and a mid-segment, and you have to find the other base. So let's say this is 8, this is 12, and you want this. Now you can still use the formula base plus base divided by 2 is equal to the mid-segment and do algebra, but I do have a little shortcut. If you notice, if you go from 8 to 12, you got to think, how many did you count to get from 8 to 12? It looks like you added 4, right? Well, if this is the middle, add 4 to the 12, so x is 16. It'll work like that every time. Even if I went backwards, if 16 was here and 12 was here and I wanted the top, 16 minus 4 is 12, so 12 minus 4 is 8. So you subtract, to get smaller and add to get bigger. Look, if that confused you, then just use the formula. Base plus base divided by 2 is equal to the mid-segment. So you multiply this, 8 plus x is 24, minus 8, that will give you 16. All right, now the last thing I need to show you, which is actually probably the most difficult part of this lesson, is let's go ahead and draw in another trapezoid. And I want y'all to put in 2x here, 8x plus 10, and let's do 6x minus 4. I don't know. Hopefully this will work out. And you want to find the value of x. Well, this one uses algebra. So the formula I like to use, instead of going b1 plus b2 divided by 2 equals mid-segment, it might be easier just to say b1 plus b2 equals 2 times the mid-segment. Please write that down. If you do not, you are going to miss this when you see this question, or actually there's like 2 or 3 questions on your assignment today. So write this formula down. Now watch what I do. B1 plus B2 equals 2 times the mid-segment. 2x, 8x is 10x. dp, 12x minus 8. Let's bring this x over. 10 is equal to 2x minus 8. Add 8. Add 8. 18 is 2x. So x equals to 9. All right, be careful because I might not ask for x. I might say, what is the length of AB? Well, if I did that, then you would plug in your 9 here. 8 times 9, 72, plus 10 would be 82. Okay, so that should be about everything you need to know for the trapezoid. So you'll have a little bit of algebra in it, and you'll have some just simple math. So follow the different maps I gave you, and good luck, and we'll see with our next lesson tomorrow, which will be on kites.